Hello, my name is Evelyn. Today I'll be presenting a business analytics case study focused on 5 major players in the UK electricity sector. The objective is to understand the relationship between key financial indicators, namely liquidity, workforce size, and tangible assets over a 10-year period. This analysis will help inform capital investment and operational efficiency strategy in the sector. We'll be using data extracted from FAME with a focus on companies like SSE Generation Limited and Energia Customer Solutions. The tool and a technique employed include descriptive statistics and regression modeling, culminating in strategic recommendations. Let's get started. Welcome to the background and motivation section of this study. The UK electricity sector has been undergoing rapid structural and operational changes, primarily driven by 3 key forces: net zero carbon target, privatization, and large-scale technological investment. This transition have not only influenced how energy is generated, but also how firms allocate capital and structure their assets. Tangible assets such as infrastructure, power plants, and generation facilities remain a cornerstone of operational capability in the industry. Thus, forecasting tangible assets accurately is critical for both strategic planning and capital budgeting decisions. However, despite their relevance, there remains a limited firm-level understanding on how key internal variables like liquidity and employee count influence these tangible assets holding. Liquidity reflects a company's ability to meet short-term obligations, while workforce size often correlates with operational skills. But the link between these variables and fixed capital investment remains underexplored, particularly in a longitudinal setting. The main objective of this study is to bridge that gap, and we aim to examine how liquidity ratios and employee number influence tangible assets accumulation across the UK energy firms using 10 years of panel data. The next slide provides an overview of the data set sourced from the FAME database, covering companies from the UK production firms. The selected variables for our analysis include liquidity ratio, number of employees, and tangible assets. My focus is on data from 2014 to 2023. These variables were selected due to their strong theoretical grounding in business performance analytics. Liquidity provides insight into short-term financial health. Employee numbers reflect operational capability, and tangible assets show long-term capital investments. My focus is to identify trends and deficiency that could be translated into actionable insights for business managers. This chart presents the liquidity ratio of 5 UK electricity generation companies from 2014 to 2023. Liquidity, as we know, reflects a company's ability to meet short-term obligations. A value below 0.005 indicates extremely tight working capital conditions. Most of the companies consistently maintain very low liquidity ratio across the decade. This might suggest tight operational cash flow management or reliance on credit lines. We observe liquidity spike post-2020 in SSE Generation Limited, Ireland, and Kirby, which could indicate precautionary cash holding in response to COVID-induced uncertainties. However, several firms also show liquidity drops across 2020 to 2021, possibly due to reinvestment, fuel price volatility, or working capital strain. According to Dennis and Sickable, 2010, firms may refrain from reinvesting excessive liquidity under economic uncertainty, instead holding cash to preserve flexibility. Similarly, Kim and Weisbach found that high liquidity doesn't always translate into investment, especially when firms are uncertain about their future demand or financing. Here we examine the evolution of tangible assets level. This asset plants, machine, and infrastructure from backbone of electricity production. we can see that SSE Generation Limited maintains a large stable assets base above £3.5 million through the period. This reflects their scale and capital-intensive operations. By contrast, similar players like Energia Customer Solutions or SSE Electricity remain under £5,000 mark, suggesting lighter operations or service-based role. There's also limited upward movement in assets for these smaller firms, potentially hinting at challenges in capital expansion, possibly due to funding's gap, policy restrictions, or skill limitations. As noted by Bex et al., access to finance in capital-heavy industries often stratified, or larger firms can leverage scale and collateral, while smaller firms faced barrier to investment. Together, these findings highlight substantial disparity in assets deployment, which could shape strategic planning and sectoral reliance. This graph tracks workforce trends across 5 key energy firms over a 10-year span. SSE Generation Limited and SSE Ireland consistently employ the highest number of workers, indicating large-scale operations and potentially more capital-intensive activities. In contrast, Cable Generation Limited experienced a sharp decline, over 75% drop in employee count from 2015 to 2023. This could indicate automation, restructuring, or plant shutdown. Firms like Energia and Electricity maintain lean staffing throughout, possibly focusing on efficiency or outsourcing. This table summarizes the mean, median, and standard deviation of tangible assets across the selected firms. SSE Generation Limited has the highest mean and standard deviation, reflecting both large scale and high variability. Energia shows a low median but high standard deviation, signaling possible outliers or recent asset expansion, including the median and standard deviation alongside the mean adds depth to the interpretation. While mean provides a central value, standard deviation indicates volatility, and median helps detect skewness and potential data anomalies. The bar chart visualizes the average liquidity ratio for each firm across 2014 and 2023 period. SSE Electricity and SSE Ireland show the highest average liquidity, suggesting this firm maintain more cash relative to liabilities, possibly due to cautious management or limited reinvestment opportunities. Interestingly, SSE Generation Limited, despite being the largest in terms of tangible assets, has the lowest liquidity ratio. The implication is that large firms with heavy assets may channel available resources into capital investment or rely more on debt, reducing their relative liquidity. There's a supporting theory that firms prefer internal funding over external finance and may hold minimal cash to reduce agency costs. This slide presents the average tangible assets held by each company over the 10-year period. As shown, SSE Generation Limited has by far the largest fixed asset base, averaging close to £3 million, which dwarfs the other firms. In contrast, Energia Electricity and SSE Ireland show much smaller average asset levels, often below £3,000. KB occupies a middle ground, suggesting some mid-scale generation or storage capacity. The disparity in asset base is likely reflective of each firm's generation capacity, grid ownership, and access to long-term financing. Firms with larger capital bases typically benefit from economics of scale, improved market power, and more efficient energy production. Here we present the regression model that predicts tangible assets based on liquidity and number of employees. The adjusted R-shaped is 0.64. 64% of the variability in asset value is explained by our model, a strong result for financial forecasting. The liquidity of coefficient is 625 million, statistically sufficient with a p-value less than 0.001. This suggests a negative correlation. Firms with higher liquidity often fewer tangible employees coefficient is positive and significant. Each additional employee is associated with a 3.078 pounds increase in tangible assets, reflecting the link between labor intensity and infrastructure. These findings align with asset-heavy industry where workforce growth often accompanies capital investment. In conclusion, based on our findings, we propose two recommendations. The two key recommendations include: 1. Companies with stable operations and low liquidity should consider reinvesting excess cash into tangible assets. Doing so could improve infrastructure and future returns. Secondly, scaling the workforce can positively impact asset growth, as evident by the regression results. Workforce expansion, especially in technical roles, can enhance production capacity and operational efficiency. Both recommendations align with the long sustainability goals of the UK energy sector and are grounded in the evidence we have analyzed throughout this presentation. Thank you.